The day was hot, the kind of heat that made the Lagos pavement shimmer and made the air heavy with dust and fatigue. On his way back from a charity event, billionaire Anthony Daniels leaned back in the back seat of his black-tinted Range Rover, scrolling through emails and investment reports. His driver slowed the car as they approached a busy intersection near the local market. "Sir," the driver said cautiously, "there's a crowd in the road." Anthony barely looked up until something caught his eye. A beggar woman seated on a piece of cloth by the roadside with a boy beside her. But it wasn't just any boy. Anthony froze. The boy looked like him. Same almond-shaped eyes, same dimples, same little crease between the brows when he frowned. He couldn't stop staring. "Pull over," Anthony ordered. The driver hesitated. "Sir?" "I said pull over." The car screeched to a stop. Anthony stepped out, ignoring the stares from the crowd. His expensive Italian shoes crunched on the gritty sidewalk as he walked up to the beggar woman. She looked up at him, shielding her eyes from the sun. Her skin was darkened by the harsh weather, her hair wrapped in a faded scarf. But there was something familiar in her face, too. "Madam," Anthony said quietly, "what's your name?" The woman blinked, suspicious. "Why are you asking?" "What's your name?" he repeated. "Amaka," she replied reluctantly. "Why do you want to know?" Anthony knelt down to the boy's level. "And his name?" The boy looked up at him, uncertain. "David." "David." Anthony's voice caught. Amaka pulled the boy closer protectively. "What exactly do you want from us? We haven't stolen anything. We sit here every day. Please don't accuse us of anything." "I'm not accusing you," Anthony said softly. "I'm just confused." Amaka stared at him cautiously, her arm protectively around the boy. "I just want to help you," Anthony continued gently. "I just want to help you. Where do you stay?" She hesitated, her lips pressing into a thin line before she finally answered. "We don't have anywhere to go," she said quietly. "We sleep here, on this pavement, every night." Anthony's chest tightened. He looked down at the little boy, thin, quiet, with dust in his hair and worn sandals, and something in him shifted. "I want to take you somewhere safe," Anthony said. Amaka's eyes narrowed. "Why?" "I just want to help," he repeated calmly. "Please, let me take you and the boy to a safer place." She was silent for a long time, clearly torn. Her body remained rigid, her eyes scanning him for any sign of deceit. After years of being ignored and mistreated, trust was not something she handed out easily. But something in his voice, or maybe the way he looked at the child, made her slowly nod. "All right," she said finally. "We'll go with you." Anthony turned to his driver and gave instructions. Less than 30 minutes later, they arrived at a modest but very clean and comfortable serviced apartment he kept for staff or guests in need. It had air conditioning, warm lighting, clean bedding, and a small kitchen. Amaka walked inside slowly, her arms still around the boy, her eyes wide with disbelief. The child immediately ran to the couch and sat on it like it was made of gold. Anthony brought in food, hot rice, chicken, fruit juice, even snacks for the boy, and a few clean clothes he had the driver buy on the way. "You can stay here as long as you need," Anthony said softly. "There's food in the fridge. If anything comes up, this is my card. You can call me anytime." He handed her his card. Amaka looked at it, then at him. Her eyes, once guarded, now softened with cautious curiosity. "Why are you doing all this?" she asked. "Why would a man like you stop for someone like me? What's the real reason?" Anthony looked at her for a long moment. Then his eyes drifted to the little boy, who was now fast asleep on the couch, a juice box in his hand. "I was touched," he said simply. "Seeing you out there, alone with a child, it moved me, that's all. I just wanted to help." Amaka said nothing, but nodded slowly. And for the first time in a long while, she felt a small flicker of safety. And hope. The days that followed were heavy with thought for Anthony. He found himself increasingly distracted at work, barely able to focus in meetings. He would often stare out the window, sipping his black coffee, lost in thought. Sonia, his fiancée, was gone again. Off to Paris for another fashion event, as she called it. That was her life, always moving, always flying, always attending something glamorous. She loved the luxurious lifestyle, private jets, designer shoes, high-profile brunches, but building a family, that was always the hard conversation. Anthony wanted to settle down. He had tried to ignore the ache in his chest for years, but now that he had seen that little boy, it was impossible to keep pretending. One evening, Anthony sat with his old friend Kenneth in the sitting room of his house, but Anthony's mind was far away. "I need to talk to you," Anthony said, rubbing the back of his neck. "What's going on?" Kenneth asked, sipping his drink. Anthony sighed. "There's this woman, and her son. I saw them by the road. I don't know, Ken. The boy looks so much like me. It just shook me." Kenneth raised an eyebrow. "Like you? Are you saying it might be your child?" Anthony shook his head. "No, not like that. At least I don't think so. I helped them, brought them to a safe place, but since then, I can't stop thinking about it. About him." He paused. "It's been almost 5 years now, Kenneth. 5 years I've been asking Sonia to start a family. And every time it's the same story. At first she said she wasn't ready. Then she said she might try. Then she changed her mind again." Kenneth leaned forward, listening. "At some point," Anthony continued, "she even proposed surrogacy. Said she didn't want pregnancy to affect her body or her career. I was open to it for a while, but it doesn't feel right anymore. It's like I want a real family, Ken. Not just a child, a family. A woman who actually wants to be a mother." "A home," Kenneth nodded slowly. "So what are you going to do?" "I don't know," Anthony admitted. "Sonia said she'd be back next week. I'm waiting. But if she's still not ready, I can't keep doing this. I need to be honest with myself. I need something real. I might even consider doing the surrogacy alone instead of going through this with someone who doesn't want the same life I do." He stared at the glass in his hand, voice softer now. "But every time I look at that boy, I feel something. Like I'm meant to be a father. I see myself in him. Not just the face, the spirit. I can't ignore that anymore." Over the following days, Anthony continued visiting Amaka and the boy, David. Sometimes he would take them to his main residence, especially on weekends. The boy loved it. He would run through the wide halls, sit beside Anthony on the couch watching cartoons. Amaka, though shy at first, would cook meals: jollof rice, egusi soup, grilled plantains. Her cooking was warm and full of care. Anthony hadn't eaten like that in years. There was laughter, comfort, peace. He began to look forward to those weekends more than anything else. It didn't feel like a charity visit anymore. It felt like home. Then, one afternoon, something unexpected happened. Anthony was sitting in the living room with David, helping him with a puzzle, while Amaka was in the kitchen preparing lunch. The doorbell rang. It was his mother. "Anthony," she said with excitement as she stepped inside. "I was nearby and thought I'd surprise you." Anthony smiled. "Mum, you didn't even call first." But before he could say more, she spotted David. She froze. Then, slowly, a smile spread across her face. "Oh my goodness." She walked straight to the boy, knelt and looked at him closely. "You are beautiful. What's your name, sweetheart?" "David," he replied shyly. She hugged him warmly and stood up, turning to her son with an astonished expression. "Anthony, how could you keep this boy hidden from your own mother?" she scolded lightly. "Why didn't you tell me you had a son?" Anthony's eyes widened. "Mum, no, he's not my son." His mother's face was full of disbelief. "Anthony, please, this boy is yours. He's the very image of you at that age. Are you telling me you don't see it?" "No, Mum, I'm serious. He's not mine." He led her to the couch and explained everything: how he found a marker on the roadside, how he felt drawn to help, how he'd been thinking a lot about fatherhood and his situation with Sonia. But his mother was still visibly shaken. She kept glancing at David. "I believe there's more to this, Anthony," she said softly. "Children don't just appear in front of you like this for no reason." Anthony looked away, uncertain. In his heart, he was starting to wonder the same thing. After that day with his mother, something began to shift in Anthony. The situation, the constant visits, the laughter in the house, the delicious meals, the quiet moments after dinner started to mean more to him than he had expected. The more time Amaka and David spent in his home, the more it began to feel like their home. It was subtle at first, a spoon left in the sink, David's slippers near the stairs, the scent of Amaka's food lingering in the air. But soon it was something deeper. Anthony began to love it. He would wake up and smile when he heard them in the kitchen. He would come back from work, and the house would feel warm and alive. David would run into his arms, and Amaka would greet him with a soft smile and a tray of fresh food. He had never known this kind of peace, this kind of belonging. And before long, he found himself looking at Amaka differently. He was developing feelings for her, strong, quiet feelings that grew with every passing day. It wasn't just her beauty, though she was undeniably beautiful. It was the way she carried herself, calm, warm, full of dignity. It was the way she took care of David, like a lioness protecting her cub. It was the care in her voice, the patience in her tone, the softness in her laugh. She was everything he had been searching for in a woman who wanted a family, a woman who actually loved being a mother, a woman with a heart that could hold a home together. Anthony felt it deeply, and the strangest thing was, he knew she felt it too. The way she looked at him sometimes, the way she stayed quiet when they were sitting close, the silence comfortable but full of meaning. But neither of them dared to say anything. It was unspoken. It was delicate. It was real. One evening, as they were having dinner together, Anthony finally said it. "You know, this house feels very different these days." Amaka looked at him, smiling. "Different how?" "It feels like a home." She didn't answer, but her eyes said everything. That night, after David had fallen asleep in the guest room, Anthony sat with Amaka in the garden. The stars above were clear and quiet. "I want to ask you something," he said softly. "I know this might sound sudden, but I've been thinking about it for a while." She looked up at him, waiting. "I have a big house, more than enough rooms. I would love it if you and David lived here, not just visiting, actually staying here." Amaka's smile faded slowly. She looked down at her hands, unsure. "Anthony," she said gently, "you've done so much for us already. But I'm afraid." "Afraid of what?" She took a breath. "I don't want to take up too much space in your life. And you told me about Sonia. I don't want to walk into another woman's house." He nodded slowly. "I understand. And I would never pressure you. I just want you to know that this place feels better with you in it." Amaka was touched, deeply, but she asked to continue living as they were, visiting, spending time together, even staying over when needed, but still having the apartment to go back to, just in case. And Anthony respected that. Their bond only grew stronger. Anthony made it clear that he wanted to take care of David, not just provide, but really raise him. He had already started making plans, enrolling him in one of the best schools, finding a private tutor to help him transition smoothly, and working with Amaka to prepare all the documents. One day, as they were cleaning up after lunch, Anthony turned to her. "Is there something you would love to do? A dream, maybe? Anything at all? I'd like to help you get there." Amaka hesitated. "Actually, yes, I've thought about it. I love cooking. People have always told me I cook very well. I was thinking, maybe I could open a small local food restaurant someday." Anthony's eyes lit up. "That's a fantastic idea." "I don't want anything fancy," she added quickly, "just a clean, simple place. I want to be able to take care of myself too. I don't want to always depend on you." Anthony admired her even more for saying that. "Then let's make it happen," he said. And he did. Within days, he set things in motion, finding a small but great location near a busy office district, hiring an interior designer, helping her register the business in her name. Amaka would cook the menu, manage the kitchen, and hire the right team. Anthony made sure everything was done professionally, without cutting corners. Amaka was deeply, deeply grateful, not just for the money, but for the fact that he believed in her, that he saw her as more than a woman he helped on the roadside, that he treated her like a partner, like someone with purpose, with value. She didn't say much, but Anthony could see it in her smile, in her quiet gratitude. And with every passing day, Anthony grew more certain of one thing. This peace, this joy, this simple family life, was what he had been searching for all along. One evening, Amaka and David were at Anthony's house. He had gone to work early that morning, and Amaka spent the day tidying the living room, folding laundry, and preparing dinner. David had drawn some pictures and left them by the couch, excited to show them to Mr. Anthony when he returned. As soon as Anthony stepped through the door that evening, exhausted but smiling, David ran up to him with excitement and wrapped his little arms around his legs. "Daddy!" he exclaimed happily. Amaka froze. Her heart jumped. "David!" she called out, startled. "No, no, no. That's not—" She looked at Anthony with wide eyes, panicking. "I'm sorry. I don't know why he said that. He must have just—" But Anthony cut her off gently, kneeling down and ruffling David's hair. "No, no. It's fine," he said with a warm smile. "It's okay." That moment lingered in Amaka's heart all night. The next morning, as Anthony left for the office again, Amaka resumed her usual cleaning. She wandered into one of the upstairs guest rooms and noticed a slightly open drawer. Inside was a framed photo. A little boy. Anthony. Maybe 5 years old. Same eyes, same nose, same expression. Her hands trembled. She sat on the edge of the bed and stared at it. This is impossible," she whispered to herself. "He looks just like David." She shook her head. No, no, it can't be. But the resemblance haunted her. From that day, Amaka started to distance herself emotionally. She was quieter around Anthony, lost in thought, careful around David's interactions with him. Then came the storm. Sonia returned. It happened one weekend when Amaka and David were spending a quiet Saturday at Anthony's. He had gone to the gym, and they were in the kitchen preparing lunch. Suddenly, the front door burst open. Sonia, high heels, sunglasses, designer bag. She walked in like the house still belonged to her until she saw Amaka and David. The air turned cold. "What is this?" Sonia hissed. Amaka stepped back, confused. "Good afternoon." Sonia's eyes locked on David. She stared at his face, hard. Then she turned to Anthony, who had just stepped inside behind her. "Anthony, are you cheating on me?" she shouted. "With this thing? And is that your child?" "Don't speak like that," Anthony said sharply. "We're not together, and no, he's not my son." "Oh, really?" Sonia snapped. "So now you just keep women and children in your house like pets?" "That boy looks exactly like you, Anthony. You expect me to believe this is just some random kid?" Anthony kept his cool. "You need to calm down. We'll talk, but not like this." Amaka gently took David's hand. "Come with me, sweetheart," she said softly. She walked away with him, leaving Sonia and Anthony alone in the living room. The tension was thick. "Sonia," Anthony began, "I've been asking you for years. Do you want a family or not? And I'm tired of waiting. Are you ready now, or is this just going to be more of the same?" "You're only asking me that now because you're with her," Sonia spat. "You're pressuring me because you're playing house with some woman off the street." "No," Anthony said firmly. "I'm asking because I've been patient long enough." "I told you from the beginning," Sonia snapped. "I wasn't ready. I even considered surrogacy because you kept pushing. And now this? You humiliate me like this?" At that moment, Amaka returned quietly, alone. She stood at the entrance of the living room, eyes on Sonia. "I know you," she said calmly. Sonia scoffed. "You? Know me? From where? The places I go, someone like you could never set foot there." "No," Amaka said, eyes narrowing slightly. "I remember you. The clinic." Sonia's face stiffened. Anthony looked from one woman to the other. "What clinic?" Amaka's voice was trembling now. "I was a surrogate once, years ago. A woman wanted a child through surrogacy. I never met her directly, only once. But I remember her face. And I remember that she changed her mind when she found out the baby was a boy." Anthony's heart started pounding. "What are you saying?" he asked. Amaka turned to Sonia. "You brought the specimen. It was your sperm donor. I was just the vessel. But when they told you I was having a boy, you refused to pay. You walked away. You left me there. I begged you. I was not ready to be a mother. I didn't have money. I was struggling just to survive. But you didn't care. You abandoned me. I couldn't give him up for adoption. I tried. But the moment I held him, I couldn't. So I kept him, even when life got worse, even when I had to live on the street." Anthony's breath caught in his chest. His voice was hoarse. Is she telling the truth, Sonia? Sonia hesitated. Sonia hesitated, then finally spoke. You were always talking about having a child. It was becoming too much. I felt like if I could just give you a baby, maybe you would stop pressuring me and we could move on. Anthony frowned. So what exactly did you do? She looked away. Sometimes I asked you to use protection, but it wasn't really to protect anything. It was to get your sperm. Anthony's eyes widened. What? I know it sounds crazy, Sonia said quickly, but I wasn't ready to be pregnant myself. So I gave your sample to a doctor I knew, someone who owed me a favor. She helped me make arrangements with a surrogate. Anthony's jaw clenched, his entire body stiffening. So you're admitting it? You used my sperm, without telling me, to create a child, and then just abandoned him. I didn't think it would get this far, Sonia cried. I wasn't ready, Anthony. When I found out it was a boy, I panicked. I had this image in my head of what I wanted. And a boy it wasn't part of the plan. Anthony took a step forward, eyes blazing. And you never thought, even for a second, that maybe I deserved to know. That I had a right to know I had a child. Sonia opened her mouth, but nothing came out. It's been 5 years, Anthony roared. 5 years, Sonia. You watched me suffer, beg, plead with you to start a family. All that time, my son was out there, alone, on the street, sleeping on the pavement. He shook his head, disgusted. You let my son suffer, he said, his voice lower now, but full of rage. You let him live like that just because he wasn't the child you imagined. Like you were picking furniture or shoes. Do you even hear yourself? Sonia was trembling now. Anthony, please. I didn't know what else to do. No, he snapped. You chose not to do anything. That's the truth. You didn't want the child, so you dumped him and walked away. He turned to Amaka, then glanced toward the hallway where David had quietly disappeared earlier. Anthony's voice cracked slightly. And all this time, I didn't even know he existed. He faced Sonia one last time. You need to leave. I don't want to hear another word. Pack your things and get out of my life. She tried to plead again, but Anthony wouldn't listen. Between them, it was over. That week, he requested a DNA test, just to confirm what his heart already knew. The result, 99.9% match. David was his son. The joy, the pain, the disbelief, it was overwhelming. He had unknowingly been with his son all this time, loving him, bonding with him, protecting him. When he told his mother, she nearly wept. I knew it, she said, cupping David's face. From the very first moment I saw him, I knew he was my grandson. Amaka was speechless. She had raised this child alone, on the street, without knowing that the father was a wealthy man. She had cried herself to sleep so many nights, hungry, afraid, cold. And now, here they were, safe, warm, loved. Anthony didn't waste time. He enrolled David in the best school. He made Amaka his priority. He proposed to her quietly in the garden where they used to sit together. She said yes with tears in her eyes. They moved in together, and this time not as guests, but as family. Amaka, David, and Anthony. The three who were once scattered by fate, now united by love and truth. And from that day on, Anthony never stopped saying it. Everything I was looking for was already standing right in front of me. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Tap the bell icon so you never miss an upload. See you in the next one.